The new security alert came as President Bush tried to reassure the public that the government has a firm grip on terror threats, anthrax especially. On that score, tests found anthrax spores, some of them, in more government buildings. And CBS's John Roberts reports tonight there's a new skin anthrax case, a New Jersey woman who is now recovering. John, what about that?
Dan, the 51-year-old New Jersey woman who has a confirmed case of skin anthrax is the first non-postal worker in that state to come down with the disease. Officials are puzzled as to how she got it. They say that while she worked at a business near the Trenton postal facility from which several anthrax-containing letters were originally mailed, there is no obvious connection. Here in Washington, there were no new cases of anthrax reported today, but there were new discoveries of contamination. Supreme Court justices were forced into temporary quarters today, the first time in 66 years after their mailroom tested positive for anthrax. Traces were also found today at the State Department and a building that houses both the FDA and Voice of America.
We think probably in most cases it's mail that was processed at the same time as the Daschle letter that was cross-contaminated by it.
But investigators are aggressively searching for what they believe is at least one more anthrax-filled letter that went through the infamous Brentwood sorting station, spreading spores and anxiety. That concern is reflected in a new CBS News New York Times poll, which found the majority of Americans feel the government has not done enough to prepare for a biological attack, and that the government is not telling people what they need to know about anthrax.
Between the CDC and the Health Department, everybody's just contradicting themselves.
After a week of conflicting statements, the administration is now attempting to speak with one voice and admitted today they need to do better.
We know we have to get stronger, and we're working with the Congress to ramp up as quickly as possible.
Chairing the first meeting of his new Homeland Security Council today, President Bush again promised the government is doing all it can to protect Americans, but added, with war comes uncertainty.
The country understands we've entered into a new period in our history. Lives are simply not going to be as normal as they were in the past.
The president also announced today the creation of a new task force to track foreign terrorists. Its mission is to identify and plug holes in the immigration system that allowed terrorists into this country and to identify terrorists already here and get them out. Dan?
Our Chief White House correspondent John Roberts. At a New York City postal facility where traces of anthrax were discovered, absenteeism has climbed to nearly 30%. CBS's Byron Pitts has more now about mail, fear, and what is and isn't being done about it.
In Lima, Ohio, mail arrived by the truckload, nearly 70 tons from a postal facility in Washington, D.C. that tested positive for anthrax. All boxed and shipped to this private company for sterilization, the same radiation process used to kill bacteria in meat and on medical products.
It actually destroys the bacteria. It disrupts the DNA and renders the bacteria, the anthrax bacteria, ineffective.
It's the latest effort by the U.S. Postal Service to safeguard the mail, its employees, and the general public. After 14 people nationwide tested positive for anthrax, including 8 postal workers, 2 of whom died.
The employee's health is everybody's #1 priority. That comes first.
But postal employees aren't so sure. In New York, lawyers for the Postal Workers Union filed court papers to close the Manhattan Processing Center. Union lawyers in Florida filed to close facilities there.
You must remove our people from harm's way.
None of this could come at a worse time for the Postal Service, which, according to analysts, could lose close to $3 billion in revenue by the end of the fiscal year.
This is the worst circumstance I have ever seen the Postal Service face.
Gene Del Polito, president of the Association for Postal Commerce, says the Postal Service and many retailers normally make the bulk of their money between now and Christmas.
If they don't make the revenue now, they don't make it for the rest of the year.
Already, some credit card companies are waiving customer late fees due to the potential slowdown in mail service. It's the kind of grace period the Postal Service would welcome from the general public. Byron Pitts, CBS News, New York.